We could just talk about that because that is fair.
Yeah.
How crazy I'm going, not having anything to do now that I am unemployed and pregnant. Alison had to field one of my panicked voice memos the other day of going like, it's terrible. I am terrible.
That's why we're here for each other.
It's true.
To bat away the imposter syndrome.
Yep.
You're doing great.
As are you, my friend. We are doing great.
Yay, happy holidays.
Yep.
That being said, hi, I'm Allison Gwynn.
Hi, I'm Amelia Cormack.
And this is Some Dark Holler. Woohoo.
I'd rather be in some dark holler where the sun refused to shine than for you to be another man's woman, never on earth to call you mine. We're back.
Yes, for episode 2.
I know.
Yeah.
So exciting. We hope you enjoyed the last one.
I enjoyed doing it with you, my friend. It took a long time for me to figure out the editing aspects of things.
But it's so impressive that you did. That's one thing we should maybe put the bad. Did we put it at the back end of the other one?
Oh, yeah.
Allison
we totally did.
recorded
It's only going to get better, friends, is what I said.
Oh, that's right. But Allison is also recording and editing this all herself, like the legend boss bitch.
I watched many a YouTube and tutorial, so we'll see.
God bless the YouTubes.
Yeah, thank you, YouTube. YouTube University.
I don't know who was it. A friend of mine always says to me, she's like, "Oh, you're such a tech person. You're such a computer person." I'm like, I'm not though. I just Google things. How do I do this? And there you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
Remember when people had to actually use their brains and come up with ideas for things and figure it out?
Oh dear God.
So what do you think? Should we go into it?
Yeah, let's jump on in.
So I kind of went to my native homeland of Australia for today's topic because I do come from a country that was established by convicts. And there's a lot of fascinating stories, and there's also a really wonderful history of ballads and bush poems that are these epically long stories of various things. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Man from Snowy River.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so that is based on a poem of the same name by a guy called Banjo Patterson.
Banjo Patterson?
Yeah, his name was, oh my God,
I'm
going to have to go back and check this.
It's also the name of your local barista, Banjo Patterson. I'm kidding.
Especially if they're at Bluestone Lane or one of the many now frequent prolific Australian coffee shops that now exist in New York City.
That's right.
I mean, the fact that you can get avocado toast at Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, so I have chosen to look at a song called The Wild Colonial Boy, which is a story that I had heard as a young kid.
Bush poems?
Yeah, a bush ballad /
bush ballad. I like that.
Yeah, they're all it's all kind of in the same genre. Like some are set to music, some are just read. But yes, they're about the bush.
My 12-year-old brain just automatically went, that sounds dirty.
I mean, it does.
Yeah, bush
you had
ballad.
A bunch of men roaming around the bush.
Yep. Singing about the bush. Worshipping the bush.
This is why we're friends. But yeah, so
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be interesting. I myself actually come from convict stock. We are descended from first fleeters on my mom's side. It used to be deeply unpopular to talk about that you were descended from convicts. You had to try and prove you were descended from aristocracy as much as possible.
Well, that's boring, isn't it?
I know. My dad claims, and I'm sure I may get in trouble with it. My dad claims they can trace his side of the family back to the last reigning king of Wales and the Battle of Hastings in 1066.
Wow.
That's what he claims.
Whoa.
I need to look into the veracity of that.
Yes, my father,
Whoa.
hi, said we were Scottish like forever. And, he got like a thistle tattoo and I went to all the Highland Games and all this stuff. And I found out we're only like 10% Scottish.
No, it's. Did you
10,
did you do 23andMe?
I did
Or one of those ancestry?
yeah, one of those, and it was like 10% Scottish, 10% Irish, mostly English.
Nothing wrong with that, my friend.
There might be something wrong with that. I feel like I just need to go through my life apologizing. Which I probably should.
I mean, I feel like that's my default setting. Just apologize for everything.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. But then my feminist goes, don't do that. And I'm like, but.
Oh, I know.
It's an inner
so
struggle.
Deeply ingrained, though. It's so hard.
Australia.
Sorry. I shouldn't go off on tangents.
You are a rebel badass.
Thank you, my friend.
You come from rebel badass stock.
Yes. So anyway, here is the Wild Colonial Boy. There's frequent versions of it, but this is the way that I first heard it, and this is the way that I hear it in my head. So here you go.
Cue song now.
'Tis of a wild colonial boy, Jack Doolan was his name. Of poor but honest parents, he was born in Castlemaine. He was his father's only hope, his mother's pride and joy, and dearly did his parents love the wild colonial boy. So come, all me hearties, we'll roam the mountains high. Together we will plunder, together we will die. We'll wander over valleys and gallop over plains, and we'll scorn to live in slavery, bound down with iron chains. He was scarcely 16 years of age when he left his father's home, and through Australia's sunny clime a bushranger did roam. He robbed those wealthy squatters, their stock he did destroy, and a terror to Australia was the wild colonial boy. In 61 this daring youth commenced his wild career, with a heart that knew no danger, no foeman did he fear. He stuck up the Beechworth mail coach and robbed Judge McAvoy, who trembled and gave up his gold to the wild colonial boy. He bade the judge good morning and told him to beware, that he'd never rob a hearty chap that acted on the square, and never to rob a mother of her son and only joy, or else you might turn outlaw like the wild colonial boy. One day as he was riding the mountainside along, a-listening to the little birds their pleasant laughing song, 3 mounted troopers rode along, Kelly, Davis, and Fitzroy. They thought that they would capture him, the wild colonial boy. Surrender now, Jack Doolan, you see there's 3 to 1. Surrender now, Jack Doolan, you're a daring highwayman. He drew a pistol from his belt and shook the little toy. I'll fight but not surrender, said the wild colonial boy. He fired at Trooper Kelly and brought him to the ground, and in return from Davis received a mortal wound. All shattered through the jaws he lay, still firing at Fitzroy, and that's the way they captured him, the wild colonial boy. So come, all me hearties, we'll roam the mountains high. Together we will plunder, together we will die. We'll wander over valleys and gallop over plains, and we'll scorn to live in slavery, bound down with iron chains.
That was a wonderful song.
Thank you. I hope that I managed to get all my breath control right, because this baby's sitting right by my diaphragm. It's
baby's just like
control.
Punching you in the diaphragm.
Exactly. So
like, take a deeper breath next time, Mom.
I can't breathe anymore. Anyway, okay. So here we go. I would first like to list my sources. We
Yay.
have an article called On the Trail of the Wild Colonial Boy from the Irish Times by Frank McNally. Yeah, there's an Irish connection, which I will go into. The Fatal Shore by Robert Hughes. A Guide to Australian Bushranging by AJF Phelan 56.
Wow.
It is a website, but it's a pretty amazing website. If you're interested in any of this and want to go check it out, it's pretty good. The Australian Dictionary of Biography and articles by Russell Ward and Granville Allen Moore, and planetslade.com, written by Paul Slade, who's this English guy that's just collected all these really cool stories from all over. Right. Also, I went to Britannica.com because that's where Encyclopedia Britannica is these days.
Old school.
I know. And then ye olde, good old Wikipedia.
Yes.
Because where would we be without the good old Wikipedia?
Yes.
So I first heard this song, as I said, when I was a kid in a really wonderful book called Midnight, The Story of a Wild Colonial Boy. And I had it as an audiobook on tape, and I just absolutely loved it. And it's about this young man who becomes a bushranger after his father dies.
What's a bushranger?
Well, Alison, I'm glad you asked.
Is it dirty?
No, it's not a parks cop in charge of shrubberies.
Oh, or not.
Let me tell you.
Okay.
I was so proud of that joke in my head. I was
love
like,
it.
Alice is going to love it.
Do it again. Let's do it again. Ready? Reference. Here we go.
But wait, Amelia, what is a bushranger, I hear
What
you
is
ask?
a bushranger?
No, it's not a parks cop in charge of shrubberies. Let me tell you. No, a little bit about the song itself. It's one of the most famous and well-known Australian folk songs, second only to Waltzing Matilda, which is like our second national anthem.
Yeah, I sang that in elementary school music.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and weirdly, Men at Work.
That is
a Vegemite sandwich.
Which also talks about someone vomiting in.
Yep, it was in my textbook, my music textbook.
Hilarious. But the thing I would like to point out about Waltzing Matilda, and I don't know if you got through all the verses at school, but it's actually about a sheep-stealing swagman, which is what we call a traveling unhoused man, or what was at the time called a hobo, who jumps into a pond and drowns himself rather than being captured by the police for stealing a sheep, which is what a jumbuck is.
Wow.
So we noticing a slight theme here. There's a slight
That's
theme.
Along the lines of like ashes, ashes, we all fall down.
Yeah. No,
yeah, dark.
He jumps into a billabong, and Waltzing Matilda is actually what they used to call, the Matilda is what they called the swag, and the swag was your sleeping bag with all your stuff in it. And Waltzing Matilda was walking along holding your swag. So it's about this guy.
That's just a great expression.
Yeah.
So just like wandering down the road. Waltzing Matilda.
Yeah.
See, a billabong.
And he jumped into a billabong, which is a body of water, like a pond.
It's not a shirt you get at PacSun.
No, which is ironic that a surf brand is named after them because it's a inland body of water that usually doesn't have any waves on it. So.
Telling you, PacSun, get it together. Retrospectively, like 40 years later.
Oh my God, I love that. So in order to understand bushrangers, I just need to give you a little brief history of Australian colonization. I promise it'll be brief. So as I was mentioning before, Australia was colonized, of course, by the English with the arrival of the first fleet in 1788, which was a fleet of convicts, and we were used as a penal colony. So basically, England had run out of room to put its convicts, so they started shipping them off to other places, Australia being one. I think there was a penal colony in Georgia, in the States.
I'm sure.
In fact, when we first meet Sweeney Todd, he's just returned from his transportation
Bloody
to
Australia, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So your sentences were usually for petty crimes, and they could be for periods of 7 years, 14 years, or life.
Damn.
More serious crimes like rape and murder were usually punishable by death. So you see a lot of things of like political prisoners, people who'd stolen a loaf, like our friend Jean Valjean, who'd stolen a loaf of bread or silver or something, being shipped off for transportation. So when the British arrived, the First Nations people have been there for around 65 to 80,000 years. It's the oldest living culture in the world.
That's so cool.
As a side note. And the Dutch had reached the western coast in the early 1600s, but they decided they didn't like it and they turned around because it was desert, and they were like, this is too hard. Bye.
They prefer the fjords.
Yeah, exactly. Although the Dutch, no, the...
my bad.
No, they did. No, the
That's
canals. They preferred
that
the
American
canals.
education system for you. Anyway, carry on.
But the British were here to stay. So as a convict, if you were well behaved, you could get your ticket of leave. And once you finished your sentence, you had the option to head back to your country of origin, or you could stay and make a life for yourself, become an emancipist. So obviously there are a lot more opportunities. There's a lot less stigma, because if you go back and you're like, oh, you're transported, you're a convict.
Right.
It's much easier to...
Like our friend Jean Valjean.
Exactly. So some of the most prominent members of the early Sydney society were ex-convicts. So for example, one of the most famous beer brands in Australia is called James Squire. And he was the first brewer of beer in Australia. And he was transported on the First Fleet for stealing chickens from his neighbour's yard.
Oh, man.
I don't know, but he ended up becoming one of the governor's guards and like trusted. So he kind of rose up the ranks, and now he has this beer to this day that's existed for, you know,
good on him.
200 however many mathematical years.
He did his time.
Exactly.
I hope those were good chickens, man.
I know.
That's gotta be a good chicken.
Exactly.
Hope it was worth it, dude.
Yeah. However, if you just couldn't bear it and you were really sneaky and tricky, you might be able to escape your sentence altogether.
Wow. How would you do that?
So the bush is what we in Australia and New Zealand, and I think they call it the same in Alaska as well. It's what we call the woods or the forest.
That would make sense.
So wilderness, very wild. Obviously, life as a convict was pretty brutal. The work was very hard and the punishments were horrendous. You could get, as an example, and very commonplace, one of the most common punishments was hundreds of lashes with a brutal whip called the cat o' nine tails.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people have heard of it, but it's basically strips of leather with tiny little ball bearings on the end that, it's not good. And
100 times?
Hundreds of times.
How would you have a back left?
Exactly. And some people would survive, which is just a miracle to me. And then, it was pretty brutal.
Not to mention like infection and stuff, I'm sure. Yeah. Yikes.
And I think I remember when there were particularly cruel tales of having salt water poured over them.
Owie.
Just to like...
Well, that might, stave off infection a little.
But extremely painful.
Yeah.
So once the Second Fleet starts arriving, which I think is the early 1800s, they start having free settlers on them as well as the convicts. So these are people who choose to come out rather than being sentenced.
That should be brave people, huh?
Yeah, it's like a 9-month boat journey on a not very pleasant. And
where are they coming from? England?
They're coming from England, yeah.
Jesus. Well, America's right there, and then they're like, no, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
Over yonder.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is with, and this is, I know this from a show that I did called The Convicts Opera, which is retelling of the Beggars Opera coming out to Australia.
That's cool.
Set on a convict ship. And we were playing convicts playing characters in the Beggars Opera.
That's cool.
But the Second Fleet was a shit show. Like it was absolutely, like boats got lost. There was one of my favorite stories was this boat called the Lady Juliana, which was called the floating brothel, but basically it was full of female convicts, but they actually had one of the healthiest survival rates because they just let everyone do whatever they want. So they're like, our sailors need some loving.
Well,
and so everyone just like,
okay.
Yeah, it's actually a fascinating story. If you want to go in and read more about it.
Yeah.
Once those free settlers start arriving, you can also be leased out to work for private citizens as a convict.
Like indentured servitude.
Yeah, exactly. Which could often be just as brutal, and many of these convicts end up working in chain gangs, for example. So not great. They're the ones who built a lot of the roads and railroads through the mountains, which the Blue Mountains just west of Sydney are these big, I mean, they're not as imposing by American standards, but they're big, long mountain chain, and Sydney sandstone is notorious, like it's this beautiful stone, but they're just, it's back-breaking work. And a lot of them just said, fuck this, we're going into the bush.
Right.
And they become bushrangers.
Cool.
So in America, they're known as outlaws, and in the UK, highwaymen. So it's basically the same.
Highwaymen.
I know. Isn't that cool? And they fulfill the same kind of role in that they're these highly romanticized characters. That,
Yeah.
So basically, as the colony expands west, because Sydney is on the east coast of Australia, into the mountains, the age of the bushranger begins.
Cool.
Now, the first bushranger, this is really interesting, is actually a man of African descent named John Caesar, who arrived on the first fleet. But the most famous is Ned Kelly. And if you want to learn more about him, there's a movie about him from the 70s starring Mick Jagger as Ned Kelly.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, also Heath Ledger played Ned, I think, at one point in the movie.
How is Mick Jagger at they don't have an Australian accent
it's
yet,
notoriously, well, yes and no. I mean, by the Kelly gang, you're in the 1880s by that point. So they've had a little while, and some of the characters that we'll explore that are, I believe, are the basis for the Wild Colonial Boy, they have some pretty colourful vernacular that's pretty Australian already.
I'm so excited. I'm just trying to imagine Mick Jagger trying an Australian accent.
Yeah. I should watch. I've never seen it. I've heard it's not great, but it's just interesting. And also, he does perform a version of the song in the film.
Oh, cool.
So as I said, bushrangers are highly romanticized. They're these Robin Hood type characters who steal from the wealthy landowners or squatters and given to the poor. Now, the term squatter is not what you think it is here.
Right.
There's some aspects of it that are the same, but they eventually become these very wealthy landowners. So they're basically people who just claimed these huge, large tracts of land for farming livestock.
Huge tracts of land.
Exactly. But they just basically went, oh, there's no one here. You can't see me doing air quotation marks. There's no one here. I'm just going to take it and put sheep on it. Apart from the fact that there are very clearly Indigenous people living there already.
Yeah, just like we did with America.
But yeah, they just took it. But they literally just took this land, and it was actually illegal. Because that's why they're called squatters.
Okay, here we go.
But then eventually the Crown starts giving people licenses, because I think so many people were doing it and it worked out to their benefit anyway. They started, So Aboriginal people do feature on both sides of the law. There are Aboriginal bushrangers and trackers who helped the police. But many of these bushrangers are actually Irish, former political prisoners who were transported for anti-British sentiments, for example. Yeah. And there's a lot of the Irish Australian connection and sentiment and disregard for authority is a very close.
Nice.
Yeah, because there were a lot of Irish people that was shipped out. Aboriginal people were also very frequently victims of the bushrangers as well, which, and which goes to show they're not nearly as high-minded as this mythology about them would make out, and they could be pretty brutal. But who lets the truth get in the way of a good story?
That's right. That's why we have Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
And the whole Thanksgiving.
They're coming to get me.
Oh yeah. And that whole Thanksgiving thing, which
barf.
So they were active from basically the early 1800s through to about 1880, which is when the Kelly gang, Ned Kelly's gang, are defeated in Glenrowan. And also it coincides, the end of the bushrangers coincides with the railroads, because railroads are a lot harder to rob than coaches or, people on the road. Mm-hmm. So though these bushrangers could be fearsome, the police are not regarded much more highly.
Right.
The mounted police begin in 1825 as a reaction to the bushrangers, and they were groups of dragoons or goons. I didn't know you get goons from the word dragoon. So
there you go. Dragoon.
A rank of
it sounds Irish or Scottish or something like that. Dragoon.
It's
dragons. They're dragons.
They're just dragons.
They're dragons.
Yeah. Where's Daenerys? Oh my God. So the police would often use violence against emancipist farmers, so those are former convict farmers, whom they suspected of hiding bushrangers out of sympathy. The Bushranging Act is passed in 1830, and this states that any person who could not present their ticket of leave and travel pass on demand could be jailed until they could prove they weren't a bushranger. So this ends up obviously with driving lower classes towards sympathizing with bushrangers, as they're the ones who are often falling victims to the law, because they're the ones that don't necessarily have their papers on them all the time.
Right.
The bushrangers would make use of this sympathy, making efforts to reconnect with former convict colleagues who had done well for themselves. So with these sympathies, these tales and songs of these exploits of these people begin to emerge.
That's how word got out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Catchy song.
Exactly. And when you don't have, it's quicker than if you don't know how to read, but you hear a song sat around a campfire. And actually, we're going to go into in a little bit. I'll go into the first time the song is heard. It's exactly an example of this, and it's really cool. So in its original versions, the Wild Colonial Boy is very long. I did see there was one reference of a journalist in the paper that said it was 157 verses long, but I think that's a joke. That was an exaggerated joke.
I don't know.
But I do that all the time because I will be like, I am 500 years old.
Yes.
So I just love that even back then it was like
157 years later, the ballad was over.
Exactly. So it has many verses in the classic Australian bush ballad style. As we said, there are also many different versions as it's spread by word of mouth. There's a strong Irish connection with the song.
Right.
With some versions talking about his being shipped out from Dublin.
Oh.
And the Irish are very quick to claim it, especially with its hero's birth in Castlemaine. There is a Castlemaine in County Kerry. Yeah. In fact, the Irish Castlemaine has a pub that has been named after Jack Duggan, which is the name that he is given in lots of the Irish recordings. And this Frank McNally in his article, this was the best description of Castlemaine. According to Frank McNally, it's an overlooked place between the big toe of the Ring of Kerry and the long toe of the Dingle Peninsula, both heavily touristed digits.
Imagine it's a foot.
I just love that. I just thought that was so cute.
And putting Dingle in there.
Exactly, which is a place.
The Dingle Peninsula. I'm sorry. It's great. It's a colorful language, and I love it.
It's fantastic.
You got Cork and Dingle.
But just to have a heavily touristed digit, I just think that's delightful. The song was recorded by the Irish folk band the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem in the 1960s, with many subsequent rollicking versions by artists such as the Irish Rovers and the Kilkennys. And this is for all the music nerds out there, but it has a very kind of 4/4 feel, a very much there was a Wild Colonial Boy.
To put it in Mighty Wind terms,
yes.
Main Street Singers.
Yes, 100%.
Very toothpaste commercial.
Exactly. While in Australia, it tends to take on a more lyrical, waltz-like kind of feel, which is the version that I know. With that, and a very similar version to that is recorded by Norma Waterson and the Gift Band, Gary Shearston, and A.L. Lloyd. And some of them have vastly different melodies, which is really kind of cool to hear. But it's said to have first appeared when the innkeeper of the Glenrowan Hotel, Anne Jones, asks her son to sing it to the most famous of Australian bushrangers, Ned Kelly and the Kelly Gang in Glenrowan in 1880, shortly before they're killed by police. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So, I mean,
whoa.
The fact that this song comes out or is starting to be heard right at the time when the age of the bushranger is about to die. So, who exactly was the Wild Colonial Boy? So in different versions of the song, he's called Jack Duggan, as we've heard, Jack Doolan, and Jack Donahue. And in fact, the original tune comes from a song called Bold Jack Donahue. And there is much conjecture that a prolific New South Wales bushranger with the same name, Jack Donahue, is the basis, with his name being changed in The Wild Colonial Boy, but keeping the initials the same to prevent sedition. So it's like, if we change the name, then the people won't get riled up and do stuff.
Yeah.
So let's check him out first.
Yeah.
Okay, so John Jack Donahue was born in Dublin in 1806. He's sentenced to transportation for life in Dublin in 1823 for intent to commit a felony. Now, that just seems the vaguest.
He was thinking about it?
I think that's what I...
How do you do that?
I don't...
He looked fishy. He just looked like he was up to no good.
Looked like he was about to do something, which, the Brits could say about the Irish at the drop of a hat. You'd be out of there.
You could say that about me anytime. I always look like I'm up to no good. Just a look on my face.
The amount of times people will say to me, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just thinking, because my thinking face, I think, looks like I am in
Like
distress.
you're about to commit a felony?
No.
Resting felony face.
Resting
RFF.
That is. And I'm going to show a picture of him later. And you'll be like,
I'm excited.
So, according to the original song, Bald Jack Donahue, he'd scarcely 12...
Was he bald?
Sorry, I should say bold.
Bold. Oh, bold.
Not bald.
I thought he was bald. Like
B-O-L-D.
I was like, he had no hair.
I mean,
like, okay.
By the time, this photo I'm going to show you later is his death
Bald
mask,
Jack.
and he does not have any hair, and with the death mold.
Bald Jack Donahue.
Bald Jack Donahue. So according to the song, he'd scarcely 12 months in chains upon the Australian shore when he took the highway as he had done before. So he scarpers. He's like
after a year, he's like, fuck this.
Yeah, I'm done. So by December of 1827, he's teamed up with two fellow Irish convicts, Kilroy and Smith. They hold up some bullock drays on the Windsor Road heading west out of Sydney. And actually, this was one of the easier forms of highway robberies, as bullocks are slow and you can do it without horses.
What are bullocks?
Bullocks are like oxen, like big,
Yeah.
Yeah. So because they're slow, you don't need a horse to rob the poor buddies.
Sounds like me. I can relate. I'm slow and easy to rob. I like to say harder to kidnap.
Oh my God, that is very funny. Oh, yeah.
But I can relate to these bullocks.
I always
Poor
say
bullocks.
I don't look like I'm easy to push over, so yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, they're not robbing the bullocks themselves, unfortunately. They don't have pockets or anything.
No, but they do. Yeah, they do have big horns. I don't know why that's relevant.
They're hard to kidnap and horny. Let's go. I'm sorry, I'm 12. Anyway, sorry. I hate to...
You're also correct.
Digress.
Yeah, but it also, like, it's so interesting because our image in a little, especially with the highwaymen, is like, they were on these horses and they're riding and...
Like the Lone Ranger and
they're
stuff.
like, no, they don't have that.
Just mosey on up and be like, hey.
Give me your shit.
Give me that.
Yeah. So they make off with a little cash and a keg of rum, but they're soon caught and sentenced to hang in March of 1828.
Ouch.
Kilroy and Smith are hanged, but Donahue managed to escape between court and the condemned cell and flees. So he gets out of there with his life. He assembles a gang of English and Irish escapees led by William Underwood. And for the next 18 months, they cut a swath through an enormous area to the west, south, and north of Sydney.
Wow.
So between the Blue Mountains, from Bathurst to Yass and the Illawarra, close to Sydney and Parramatta, and north almost to the Hunter River. Now, I know that's not going to mean anything to anyone who's not from Sydney, but I'm telling you that is hundreds of miles.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
Hopefully they'd gotten horses by now.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so it's a huge area that they're working. And also the thing with what I was saying before about the history of the Blue Mountains, because there were all these caves, and so the mountains had lots of good hiding places.
Nice.
So that was why there was also this particular area was rife with people doing this with bushranging.
Hooligans.
Exactly. Jack was notorious for being rather flash. He would wear a black hat, superfine blue cloth lined with silk surtout fashion, plaited shirt.
Ooh.
I love this in brackets, says good quality, and laced boots. So he liked to look...
A plaited shirt.
Yes. I don't know. Yeah.
It's braided.
Yeah, exactly. And around it, so he likes to dress up.
He fancy.
Yeah, he fancy. And around this time, according to a £20 reward poster, he's 22 years of age, 5'4" in height, brown freckled complexion, flaxen hair, blue eyes, and has a scar under the left nostril.
So he's short.
Yeah.
Wow.
But people were, on the whole, a lot shorter back then as well.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Because our other guy's not a tall person either.
Yeah, I got excited because I'm 5'2",
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Brethren.
Yes. No, but indeed. There are stories of the gang's brutality.
Uh-oh.
So during the raid on James Hassel's farm, it said that the station staff are used as human shields.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah. They also strip their victims, leaving them in nothing but their shirts, if they're lucky, while their clothes are rifled through.
Yeesh.
The police are sent out to try and get them, and one police party stumbles upon their camp and waits for them to return. When they do, a gunfight proceeds for 2 hours.
Wow.
This is the best. At one point, the police stop to eat the bushrangers' dinner rations and invites them to join.
Like, stop. We're at lunch break.
Yep.
You guys want some of this?
I mean, it's your food, but...
Do you want some of these beans?
Yeah. It's very...
Okay, game on.
Sweet and kind of strange. Yeah, game on. So somehow Donahue escapes again, and he's the only one of the gang who does so.
Wow. He's just a selfless man.
Yeah.
It's not very loyal, is he? He's just
he just
bye, guys.
just cuts and runs.
I'm wily.
Like, I'm gonna protect myself. Okay.
All right.
So I should correct that. He's the only one who's at that fight. Because he still has William Underwood is still with him.
Oh, okay.
So he's not with him I don't think William Underwood was with him at that point.
Okay.
But William Underwood is still around. Because by September of 1830, he's in the company of Underwood, William Webber, and William Walmsley. Their success has been short-lived, and they have resorted to raiding the farms of the poor as well as the wealthy landowners.
Damn it.
Yeah. They're eventually found in Bringelly, which is to the southwest of Sydney, by another police raiding party on their return from visiting sympathisers. So according to the song, Bold Jack Donahue, he's surprised by troopers, surrounded on all sides, and shot in the heart after shooting 9 men.
Well.
Yeah, but in reality, he actually takes cover behind trees and he taunts the police. He's eventually shot in the throat and temple by a trooper named either Muggleston or Muckleston, depending on which source.
He's a muggle.
He's a muggle. Side note, the troopers Fitzroy Davis and Kelly from the song feature nowhere in this story.
Oh.
So I just think that
they just put that in there.
Well, I think that Fitzroy rhymes with boy.
That's right.
So I think that's
gotta make the rhyme. You gotta make it.
Exactly.
Yep.
So molds are made for a death mask of his head by a Sydney tobacconist, one of which prominently shows the bullet wound in his temple.
Whoa.
Within a week of his death, a line of clay pipes is produced in the form of his head, complete with the bullet hole in the temple, which I quickly snapped up.
Ew.
Can you imagine seeing someone walking down the street with a pipe?
Just a dead man smoking out of a dead man's head. It would be great if the smoke came out of the bullet hole.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That's what I would want it to do as well.
Yeah, just the smoke coming out of the bullet hole.
Yeah.
Yep. What? Okay.
Yeah. So the songs written about him are pretty inaccurate.
Yeah.
The most prominent being that one, Bold Jack Donahue, I've mentioned. But I liked this quote. Donahue was a figure of fantasy. The legends of his freedom relieved Australians' dissatisfaction with the conformity of their own lives, and this has been the root of the cult of dead bushrangers ever since. Moreover, he was Irish, and the ballads make a point of this to commemorate the hatred of the Irish convict for the English guard.
Oh, yeah.
So
we
got each other. And there's a little picture of him. That's his little...
Oh, look at his little face.
Death mask
he
there.
Looks... I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah.
He looks thinner than I thought.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he's just got a very prominent head.
Yeah. I mean,
he's got a 5 head.
Yeah, he does. It's true. But the only pictures that I could find of him were when he was dead, which is interesting.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
a little picture of his death mask.
Weird.
Yeah. So was Donahue the Wild Colonial Boy? His deeds certainly follow many aspects of those in the song, especially the manner of his death. Mm-hmm. There was a Judge McAvoy who lived and worked about 30 miles from where our next candidate was born. However, he was actually held up in 1862. The Beechworth coach robbery, which is mentioned in the song, happened separately in 1859. But we know that Jack Donahue dies decades before that, in the 1830s. So it can't
not
necessarily
him.
be him.
Maybe not him.
And as we've seen, the names of the troopers are not even remotely the same.
Interesting.
So our next and final contestant is a young man named John Jack Doolan,
Doolan.
Doolan, who is in fact born on April 26, 1856, in the town of Castlemaine, Victoria, like in the song.
Oh, yeah.
He's the third child of William Dooling, ING, and Anne Burke, both Irish former convicts. So, as I said, Ireland features a lot. In various newspapers and prison records, he's referred to as John, Jack, or James Doolan, AN. So it's just, names feel like they're very amorphous in this time.
Oh, they totally are. I mean, they are everywhere.
Yeah, but just even last names.
Yeah.
They just feel like they're like,
Tom Dooley, I think. That guy from another murder ballad is Tom Doolan.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in the early 1860s, the family moves to the centre of the Australian gold rush, Bendigo, with dreams of striking it rich like
just
so many
cool
did.
Names.
Bendigo. At 12, he's apprenticed to a local shoemaker named Joseph Abbott. He stabs a fellow apprentice during an altercation at work in 1869. Just a reminder, he's 12.
Oh.
Though the victim survives, he's charged with grievous bodily harm and sentenced to 12 months on a reformatory ship.
Whoa.
Yeah.
When you're 12?
When you're 12.
I mean, okay, I can see a 12-year-old stabbing someone if they don't have the right upbringing, but on the other side, I'm like, he's only 12. Why is he stabbing someone?
And also, like we were talked about with Frankie, working at 13.
Are you 12? Get to work. Go down the mine.
Yep. So it's at this time when he's sentenced to that reformatory ship that he's first listed as John Doolan, A.N. On the ship, he meets Edward James Ned Donnelly. Ned is a year older than him and had stolen a saddle and bridle. Apparently, he'd taken the horse wearing them too, but the prosecution agreed to drop the more serious charge of stealing a horse as he was 13 at the time. Damn. Yeah, these ones are young.
Teenagers are scary.
Truly. Jack's released in February of 1870, and two sources, one had 3 weeks and the other had 3 months, so I don't know, I'm not quite sure which, but either 3 weeks or 3 months later, Ned escapes, and he starts calling himself William Jones. Just cause.
William Jones.
Nothing to do with Edward James Donnelly, but sure.
Jim Jones? Wait a minute. I'm kidding.
I mean, the man ran a cult. Who knows how long he was alive? They team up again in December of 1871 and decide to start bushranging. They steal some clothes and a horse, and then on New Year's Eve of 71, they rob a local widow at gunpoint.
Damn.
So poor old Bridget Foley is about to go to bed when they knock on her door with Ned threatening her with a pistol.
Listen, don't open the door.
Listen. She doesn't have much, so they make off with some loose change, a couple of chickens, and billy cans. Now, billy cans are our friend in Waltzing Matilda. He would have had a billy can. It's a can with a tiny little bucket with a handle.
Interesting.
And you put it over the fire and you make tea in it. So you boil your water, you put the tea in, and then you steep. So you have tea from your billy can. There are a few more petty thefts in the following weeks, mostly supplies for what they'd need to survive in the bush.
Sure, gotta start small.
You gotta, start somewhere and get your stuff together. Then the crime wave peaks on 9th of January 1872. They steal a cart from Patrick Hallinan's farm on the Campaspe River. Hallinan chases afterwards, then alerts a constable named William Davidson, who joins him in the pursuit. So, I mean, that's close to Davis, one of the cops in the song. The boys are forced to stop and arrested. I love this. The boys did not attempt to resist, but cowered down before the trooper and quietly allowed themselves to be handcuffed.
Well,
so,
they're tiny.
No dramatic stand
they're
there.
Little kids.
Yeah. And they're so young. So their trial is set for February 19, and because of their age, Jack is 15 at this point and Ned is 16, they are dubbed the Larrikin Bushrangers by the newspapers. So a larrikin, I'm not sure if you've heard this word before.
Nope.
But it's an Australian word for a scamp or ne'er-do-well, but they're also regarded with a certain degree of affection.
Oh, little scamps.
Wikipedia defines them as a mischievous young person, an uncultivated, rowdy, but good-hearted person, or a person who acts with apparent disregard for social or political conventions. I kind of like, that's what Paul Hogan and Steve Irwin were channeling that.
Yeah.
That's the larrikin. It's like the jokester, the person that you're like, hey, you shouldn't do that, but you kind of get away with it because you're so cheeky and charming.
Cheeky.
They're tried and convicted for robbery under arms and sentenced to 17 and 14 years hard labor, respectively. Damn. And Ned receiving the harsher sentence as he was the one who had forced open the window to steal the clothes from Bridget Foley.
Wow.
There's a lot of outcry about the harshness of these sentences because the state's most notorious bushranger at the time, and this is we're in the state of Victoria, who had boasted that he had committed 60 robberies, he was only sentenced to 15 years.
Damn.
So Ned gets 17 and Jack gets 14.
What are they going to do with women's clothing?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she had some clothes from her... I don't know. Maybe it wasn't from Bridget Foley. Maybe it was from someone else.
Maybe they just wanted to look nice.
There's also that. But you know, if you're running around with what's on your back, your clothes on your back, you're gonna need to change.
Yeah, in the bush, you might be like nobody's gonna notice like if you're wearing a dress or not. They don't care.
Exactly. Yes, precisely.
Wear what you want.
Frock up, my friends. The local press is surprisingly on the side of the boys.
Oh,
because of the harshness of these sentences. Yeah, and that. Like, the use of the word larrikin just very much shows that people are like, oh, come on.
Two artful dodgers, just.
Literally. The severity of the sentences is criticised, and there's even a petition asking for clemency on the basis of their ages. So Jack serves his sentence at Pentridge Prison in Melbourne. On his admission, he is described as 5'1", weighing 7 stone, 12 and a half pounds, buck-toothed, sallow-complexioned, with brown hair and eyes, and a freckled face. So he's also freckled. But this is this guy. I think he's kind of a handsome chap.
Yeah. He looks good.
That's him at 15.
That's 15?
That's him at 15.
Jesus.
He looks
25.
We
thought people from the 80s looked like they were like, at 15, they were like 38. But this guy really does.
Yeah, he looks 25. You can look up a picture of him if you want to check it out. Or maybe we'll post the pictures of these on our Instagram.
Let's put it on our Instagram.
So, yeah, you can check the pictures of him
He looks very handsome for a 15-year-old.
I mean,
I was expecting like, you know, who will buy this wonderful morning? You know.
That angelic child.
You know.
Where is love? I mean, that's a tragic story. What happened to him if you want to...
Go look that up.
While in prison, he supposedly commits... So this is Jack. While in prison, he supposedly commits over 30 punishable offences, including... possession of various contraband, such as tobacco, obscene drawings, knives, and a hacksaw.
Wow.
Refusing to obey the guard's orders and assaulting his fellow prisoners.
Yep.
Talking, whistling, and dancing in his cell condemned him to 2 days solitary.
How dare you?
What do people have about that? This is the second episode where people have an issue about dancing.
Can't be happy in prison.
Can't be happy in prison. I mean, how else are you meant to entertain
What if he was
yourself?
really sad and was just like emoting through modern dance?
I mean...
his sorrow.
Yeah.
Is that the same punishment?
I mean, unless it was the people in the cell with him were like, shut the fuck up.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Because if he's talking and whistling at the same time, I have a friend who was like, you can't whistle anywhere near me.
I have a super here that walks around like outside and it echoes through the up through the windows and it's just this creepy whistling and I'm like, nope, don't like that.
Don't like that. So Jack apparently also spent 2 months in irons for threatening to stab one of the prison guards. And in August, managed to excavate 1/2 ton of soil from the floor of his cell before his planned escape tunnel was detected.
Shawshank.
Yeah.
Shawshank vibes.
And this was, according to the Argus, it pronounced him one of about 30 of the worst prisoners at Pentridge.
Atta boy.
Which is saying something. So he serves 10.5 years of his
Wow,
sentence.
that's a long time.
Yeah, but it's not the full 14.
No.
So, but yes.
Pretty close.
Yeah. I'm guessing at some point he went, well... I guess I gotta buckle down. I guess if I want to get out
I'm tired.
Some good, exactly. I'm tired of whistling.
No more dancing for me.
He serves 10.5 years of his sentence, and he's released in August of 1882.
Hooray!
One source that I read states that he then vanished from official records, but then another states that he moves to Melbourne, calls himself Jack Dowling, so he goes back to his original birth name. and works as a tobacconist and barber. He marries Amelia Watkins in 1885, and they have a daughter also named Amelia.
Wow.
Just like me. In 1887, and this is where it gets a bit sad.
Amelia Jr.
Amelia Jr., by which time Jack is already succumbing to TB. He dies on June 21, 1887, with baby Amelia joining him 5 months later.
Damn.
Yeah, so tuberculosis.
Is that the
all
consumption?
Around. Yep.
The consumption.
Yep. So, who do you think is the more likely winner? On the one hand, we have Doolan, born in Castlemaine, living within 30 miles of where a Judge McAvoy was working. He's also pretty young, like the anti-hero in our song.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
However, at the time of the events in the song, he would have only been 5 years old.
No.
On the other is the far more fearsome Jack Donahue, whose feats predate the events of the song by decades, but whose style is far more akin to those in the song. Or, as so often happens in folk song, is it in fact just an amalgamation of the two?
I'm going to go with an anamorph of the two.
Yeah. The events expanded and aggrandized by the effect of passing from mouth to mouth and from ear to ear.
Yeah.
Defiance and the snubbing of authority are most definitely present in the lives of both men, which are things that are very much intrinsic to the Australian character.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Badasses, one and all.
Yeah. Cheeky larrikins.
Yeah. Charming, cheeky larrikins.
So for my idea for our modern interpretation, I was trying to think of who modern day bushrangers would be. And I've seen a lot about the movie Dumb Money.
Yeah.
And the whole GameStop stock situation in 2020.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know, GameStop stock. I put it in the song.
I know.
It's hard.
It's my
Poor
verse.
Alison, I've given her a very wordy.
I can do it.
Wordy song.
GameStop stock.
But it just felt like the sentiment of the song, which is, robbing from the rich to give to the poor, and sticking it to the man.
I love it.
That story is really fascinating about, these people that think that they run everything and keep poor people out. And
Boo.
A guy that tried to say, hey, you could get a slice of the action too.
Yeah.
Despite what these idiots would, with all the money, would have you believe.
We need more of that.
Yeah.
We do.
So,
I approve this.
You approve this message?
I approve this message.
Thanks, Fran.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think maybe do you want to sing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, you larrikin.
So is this called The Ballad of Roaring Kitty? Come gather round and hear the tale of GameStop and the kitty, and the fat cats down on Wall Street who thought they were sitting pretty. But Keith Gill and the people set the stock market ablaze. Their courage and their fortitude, the world they would amaze. So hold the line. Though the pricks with all the cash would try to tear us down, just hold the line. And we'll see a day shine bright with gold for yours and mine. Keith Gill was born in 86 and raised in Brockton, Mass. Of humble and hard-working folks who had but little cash. His sister died of COVID in the plague of 2020. So he would strive to give his kin a life of calm and plenty. He saw the greedy men of Melvin Capital were cats, and were keeping all the GameStop stock at a price that was so bad. So he called on humble folks everywhere, from moms to students and nurses, to buy it up from under them, hit them squarely in their purses. So hold the line. Though the pricks with all the cash would try to tear us down, just hold the line. And we'll see a day shine bright with gold for yours and mine. The price kept soaring every day as the fat cats lost their minds. Millions of dollars were lost each day, they were truly in a bind. And though many wanted to claim their prize, Roaring Kitty said, please don't sell. We'll all be rich if we hold the line. The pricks can go to hell.
The trading app Robin Hood, contrary to their name, tried to shut it down, prevent the trades to end the people's game. But too late it was, the tables had turned, the rude the day they tried to stop the people's movement, to stem the flooding tide.
So hold the line. Though the pricks with all the cash would try to tear us down, just hold the line. And we'll see a day shine bright with gold for yours and mine. So let this be a lesson to all those who run the banks. If you keep the money for yourselves, you'll only swell our ranks. You can only keep us down so long before we'll play your game and hit you where it hurts the most and end your bloody reign. So hold the line. Though the pricks with all the cash would try to tear us down, just hold the line. And we'll see a day shine bright with gold for yours and mine.
Yay! That was written by Amelia, and it was wonderful, and it makes me want to start a revolution.
I know, it feels like a combination of, like, I think it was inspired by those strike songs that you've played me a few of.
Yeah.
A little sea shanty. Also want to say that there was Alison on the Shruti box.
The Dwight Schrute box. No, I'm kidding. That's cultural appropriation.
Of The Office.
Of The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it's I watched that movie on Money recently, and it was a big eye opener, and just how convinced we are that they have all the power when
They don't.
And it
Yeah.
just takes one person to go, hey, just look over here. And also they think that they're in control of it. But if you just distract them and we go over here and buy this up.
Steal their chickens, so to speak.
Steal their chickens, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, we just watched. Sorry, I'm really close to the mic. We just watched that the Mick Jagger movie. What was it?
Ned Kelly trailer.
Ned Kelly. Woo boy.
1970.
Dialect coach alert. Dialect coach alert.
If you want to laugh, if you want to giggle.
Oh my God, we're gonna post it on the description of our podcast. Just if you want to.
Yeah, check out the notes
for a little giggle.
Whoever thought Mick Jagger would be a good idea.
Well,
to
I mean,
acting
clickbait again. It's like.
Well, yeah. I mean, 1970. That's peak
Oh yeah,
Rolling Stones time.
Peak Mick. Yeah.
But very many Australians were very angry because he is like
see why.
the most iconic. He's one of the most iconic like Australian symbols of, he's like a
freedom and rebellion.
Yeah, exactly. Billy the Kid, or
Sure.
he has a huge casts a huge shadow, and so people were very annoyed when that came out.
Like Mick Jagger. All right.
So what do we learn? Capitalism sucks.
Capitalism sucks. Stick it to the man. If you're gonna steal chickens, make sure they're damn good chickens.
Yes, very good chickens. Also, like, don't treat people horribly, and then they'll maybe want to do stuff for you.
They won't rise up and hurt you and steal your chickens.
And if you keep people down, they're gonna get really pissed and find someone to be there.
Like SAG and Fran Drescher.
Exactly.
Maybe we should. If anyone wants to write a ballad about Fran Drescher.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, capitalism sucks.
Capitalism sucks. Stick it to the man.
Yep.
Don't piss us off, or we're gonna come and get the fat cats.
Yep.
And be all about the bush.
All about the bush.
Baby.
Yep.
Be a bush ranger.
Yep. Bush is powerful.
Range that bush.
Yep.
Roam all around the bush.
Especially in Tasmania, because Tasmania is a triangle.
Yes, in the south.
It is in the south. Also, Tasmanian Devils look nothing like Taz from Warner Brothers.
Oh, well, that's upsetting.
Yeah, but they are crazy
Are
animals.
they cute?
Imagine if a really poor little like pit bull
Oh,
had. I'm gonna show Alison a picture, and then
okay.
you can help me describe it to people. It's
I'm excited.
truly difficult to, like, I guess like an equivalent would be a wolverine. So that's
Holy
it's
crap.
like a badger,
Look,
sort of, but not.
It looks like a pit. It looks like a pig Wolverine. Pig Wolverine.
Right. They are kind of cute, but they make
They are cute.
horrible noise. But they're
Oh no! What is the noise?
Here we go. Nope. They're fighting, like horrifying. So yeah, like I said, horror.
Oh my god! Can you imagine that happening outside your window? You know, because in New York we're like, oh, the cats are in heat or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they were in heat outside your window, that was the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life.
So if you're fast asleep listening to this, we apologize.
And we got here somehow.
I mean, we talked about bush
and devils in your bush. Devils in your bush screaming ungodly sounds. If that came out of my bush, no man would enter. Or woman. No one. So, I'm glad we got to this.
I'm glad we did too. Who knows how much of this is actually going to make it in?
All of it. Thank you for joining us at Mature Discussion Hour. So that was lovely.
Thanks,
really thank you for sharing your culture with me.
My pleasure.
I loved it.
I don't know, part of our Australian audience are going to be like, but we know this already. I know you do, but there's a lot of people here in America that do not. So
I'm an ignorant American that needs to be educated. So thank you.
You are far from ignorant, my friend.
I appreciate it. Amelia, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, my friend.
We're going to have all the links to the references and the resources that we used on our description when we post the episode, and maybe a fun little YouTube link to a certain Mick Jagger movie.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
And maybe like, well, you already heard the sound of the Tasmanian Devil, so there's no need.
I don't even think we need to subject anyone to that.
Never leave my brainwaves. It's locked in there.
Yeah.
But if people want to get in touch with us and tell us what we did wrong.
Yep. Or encourage words of encouragement.
Or give us lovely encouragement.
Which we appreciate. So we have our email, Cormac and Gwyn. That's all one word, all lowercase, CORMACKANDGUINN @gmail.com. Or you can find us on the Instagram at Cormac and Gwyn, all one word, all lowercase, spelled the same way.
You're amazing.
You are.
Yay.
And we're hoping we're gonna keep growing, and
we're gonna keep growing,
finding more stories, and
yeah, I love us. I just do.
Me too, friends.
We love you.
Yeah, we do.
So keep safe.
Yep.
Don't go down by the river.
Nope.
Don't piss off the poor folk.
Yep.
And especially don't find yourself in some dark holler. Nailed it.